where you use the word interactivity, I might use the word relationship. And my work is all about relationship. All about relationship. Because in the clinical practice I was doing as a dance movement psychotherapist, there were people I was treating, who I was working with in NHS settings, who had deprivation of liberty, had been sectioned on the grounds of that the space they were in meant that they were either a danger to themselves or a danger to others under the Mental Health Act of 1983. And the nature of that act and that section meant that people had their liberty taken away and were put in required legally to stay in a hospital ward under the care of a consultant, clinician, consultant psychiatrist. So there was the environment meant that for somebody who was sectioned, there was already this added, if you like, burden of being there against their will, and often their will was that there was nothing wrong. They couldn't see that there was anything wrong. So a social worker, a GP and a psychiatrist, three people together had to make a decision that this was in the best interests of the person to deprive them of their liberty. So the setting, I'm just kind of painting the picture of what it might mean for somebody who's having a life crisis and suddenly finds themselves in this space, what that might be like. And finding that they have lost all the familiar colours, paintings, the setting in which they've lived and loved and got used to, and suddenly they're in this space which requires them to find a way to survive in it, really, find a way to cope. And this is one of the great struggles of people who are going through a really great crisis to survive. So put yourself in those shoes, and you're working on in that setting. What do I, as a clinician, as a dance therapist, what can I do? Well, the first thing I can do is see where and how I can make a relationship. And that relationship can often be non-verbal. And I'm using all my skills to read the body, to read the person's facial expressions, and to sense when might be a moment to make that interaction. When is a good moment? Because if somebody is very distressed, like they might be when they first come in, they need to in some way accept, and many people can't accept what's happened to them, so they're very difficult to work with. But if you can find a moment, and I look to find a moment to engage with them on the ward, sitting on a bench or sitting on a windowsill or in the chair in one of the lounges, try to make a connection with them that says to the person, I'm saying hello, and there might be something I could do that can assist you. So even though I'm a dance movement psychotherapist and I'm interested in movement and dance, the movement and dance comes out of the relationship and the possibility for movement and dance and the possibility for using other forms of interaction, maybe through song, through poetry, through the telling of a story and a simple connection that we We might know somebody, or we might have shared a life experience. Might be, I don't know, it might be cricket, tennis, it might be fencing, it might be walks on the moors, it might be canoeing, mountain climbing, travelling, just some way in which the relationship can start. Now, I've given an extreme example of somebody who's been sectioned, but they don't have to be, and people can be, can. So I'm looking all the time to find ways to connect, and then through the relationship that I make, see how the skills that I've got, the movement and dance skills, the sense in which the songs that I have and the ways that I apply them within dance movement psychotherapy, that through our own theory and practice, if you like, our body of knowledge and skill, that people can start to feel less isolated, lonely, that there is a sense of connection because somebody cares. So the essence of the care, of all care, is about relationship, and whether people have the time to make the relationship, whether they have the interest enough in people to do that. And I can hear you say, well, that's the nurse's job. Yes, it's the nurse's job to care, but there's something about the values in which we approach that caring, the values of respect for choice, respect for individual dignity, respect for somebody to decline what you're offering, and what's known in dementia work as personhood, and personhood refers to the status bestowed from one person to another in the context of relationship. I think that's in near enough what Professor Kitwood said from the Bradford Dementia Group in his wonderful book Dementia Reconsidered, which was a seminal work from 1997. But he and other colleagues had done fascinating work on what personhood means.
As a dance movement psychotherapist, Richard was very keen to talk about respect and to characterize what he does as a relationship. To build a relationship, and I think that's because he works with dementia, people who live with dementia. His concern is to offer a caring and a respect and an identity to people. And he mentioned something called personhood. Personhood is very much based on that idea of a relationship. And if we think about how we can build relationships online, maybe that will help in terms of understanding a respectful contract. We have practices in real life, how we introduce ourselves, how we engage with others. And sometimes we don't bring those to the online environment. And maybe it's worth thinking about some of that.